Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or The Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about 5 players that could go nuclear in 2024, 5 players that could destroy their ADP and finish much higher than where they're currently coming off the board. But before we could get on into 5 players that could go nuclear in 2024 fantasy football, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you do leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter or X, please do so at NotoriousFNTSY. So without further ado, let's get into 5 players that could go nuclear in 2024 fantasy football. We begin with the first player that could go nuclear for you in fantasy football this season, and that is Christian Kirk, wide receiver of the Jacksonville Jaguars, current underdog fantasy ADP wide receiver 30 at pick 43.9, aggregate ADP from ESPN, Fantrax, MFL, Sleeper, and NFFC have him at pick number 64. So Christian Kirk goes pretty high on underdog fantasy, but it is important to note that in underdog fantasy drafts, that is a best ball platform where wide receivers get hammered early in fantasy drafts. They get hammered throughout the draft, whereas your normal home league, the wide receivers are going to fall, and the running backs that you might be able to get in the 3rd round on underdog, the 4th round, are going to be pushed up the board. So Christian Kirk was a guy that if you asked me a few weeks ago, well, about a month ago, I would have told you I am not even coming close to drafting Christian Kirk. And then I start to realize, hey, maybe we should be in on Christian Kirk, but I wasn't fully ready to say it, so I wasn't having any super hot takes on Christian Kirk. But now I have had an epiphany. It cost me 50 at Tiffany. Shout out to Tiffany Stephanie. I realized that Christian Kirk is going to be the locked and loaded, solidified wide receiver 1 on the Jacksonville Jaguars offense. I realized that while Gabe Davis has had some time in the limelight, while he had that great game against the Chiefs in the playoffs a couple years ago, while he had everyone giving him the Hawk Tua, giving him the Gawk 9000 special a couple years ago, making him a rise up the draft boards, and then he disappointed, right? He disappointed, but we still kind of worried in a way. I kind of worried. I was like, oh my God. Now Christian Kirk's competition is Gabe Davis. Look, Gabe Davis is going to have those few couple games, right? He's going to have those couple games where he takes those 5 targets for 4 receptions for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns, and that is going to be great. But at the end of the day, Gabe Davis is not going to steal away Christian Kirk's role as the wide receiver 1 now with Calvin Ridley in Tennessee. You want to know who else I don't think is going to do it? I don't think Brian Thomas Jr. will do it. I think Brian Thomas Jr. will play second fiddle to Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk will be the wide receiver 1. Brian Thomas Jr. will be the wide receiver 2 by the end of the season. Maybe things start off with Gabe Davis getting more targets than Brian Thomas Jr., but I think when all things are said and done, when push comes to shove, Brian Thomas Jr. will be the number 2 wide receiver in terms of targets on this team, making Christian Kirk atop the Iron Throne as the wide receiver 1 in targets. Now, last year, Christian Kirk definitely didn't do his job. He definitely didn't perform to a way where you would be salivating thinking about his stats, right? Wide receiver 33 in PPR points per game, tied with Garrett Wilson and Kendrick Bourne, wide receiver 46 in PPR. But he played in just 12 games last season, missed the end of the season with a torn groin, 85 targets, 7.1 per game, 57 receptions, 4.8 per game, 787 receptions, 65.6 per game, and 3 total touchdowns, 58th. But you have to put things into perspective for last season. Calvin Ridley was seeing a boatload of targets. The problem was he was dropping them. He's getting all these targets in the red zone. It's like, oh my gosh, the Jaguars are going to score. They throw it to Calvin Ridley, and then the guy looks like he has fucking lube all over his fingers, right? He drops the ball, and then, oh, look, they're marching up the field. Here's a bomb to Calvin Ridley, and he drops it, right? Now, I think Christian Kirk is not going to make those same mistakes. I think Christian Kirk and Trevor Lawrence will be on the exact same page. In terms of efficiency last year, 14th in target accuracy, 19th in yards per route run, 14th in true catch rate, and top 10 in win rate versus man, route win rate versus man. So I think that Christian Kirk has the ability to step up as the wide receiver 1 on the Jacksonville Jaguars. And while the Jaguars season ended in catastrophe, it ended in disaster, if we remember, they were the #1 team going into that. It was either Thursday night, Sunday night, or Monday night game, that primetime game. And then Trevor Lawrence gets hurt and all of the dominoes fall over. Everything goes wrong and they don't even make the fucking playoffs. And while it is funny to go look back on, the Jaguars, they fucked everything up, right? So funny. At the end of the day, Trevor Lawrence is still really solid. Christian Kirk is capable of being a wide receiver 1 at the NFL level, and I believe in this Jaguars offense that may be able to put up crazy amount of points game in and game out. Christian Kirk will be a large benefactor of that, and I believe that Christian Kirk has the upside to go nuclear and finish well ahead of ADP as the wide receiver 30. At number 2, we got Josh Jacobs, running back of the Green Bay Packers, underdog ADP, running back 12 at pick 51.9. Aggregate ADP got him at pick 26. So as you can see, an underdog, you can get the running back 12 at pick 51, whereas to get the running back 12-ish in aggregate ADP, you got to pay an early 3rd round price. And I am ecstatic to even get him in the early 3rd round. That is how confident I am in Josh Jacobs. I understand that Josh Jacobs didn't have the greatest season in Viva Las Vegas last season with the Raiders, right? I fully understand that. Running back 18 in PPR points per game, running back 28 in PPR, played the first 13 games of the season, and then missed the rest of the season with a quad strain. Josh Jacobs had 233 carries, 17.9 per game. Number 11 at running back, 805 rushing yards, 61.9 per game, 24th. 54 targets, 4.2 per game, 19th. 37 receptions, 2.8 per game, 24th. 296 receiving yards, 22.8 per game, 19th. And 6 total touchdowns, 24th. Doing all of that with the most amount of defenders in the box in the NFL. 7.2 first, and he had a 30.2% dominator rating, 7th. The biggest reason why I'm seeing people get their panties in a bunch, while I'm seeing people get so worried about Josh Jacobs, is, don't you know that the LaFleur, they're not going to give him the lion's share of carries, right? He's not going to be a workhorse running back. Guess what? He doesn't need to get some crazy Christian McCaffrey workload to succeed in Green Bay. Why is that? Because in Las Vegas, he had to get so many touches because the offense ran on Josh Jacobs. Despite the fact that they have Davante Adams, this is an offense that wanted to establish the run, smash mouth Benny Snell football, right? Whereas the Green Bay Packers are going to be able to air it out. They're going to be able to move the chains in other ways, and that is going to set up Josh Jacobs for a shit ton of scoring opportunities. I understand that he is not going to be seeing 18 carries a game, basically like he did in Las Vegas last year, 17.9 per game. But if he's able to get his 4 or 5 targets every single game, even with Marshawn Lloyd getting a portion of the touches and A.J. Dillon getting the crumbs down there, getting a couple of touches because that guy's a certified fucking bum. But at the end of the day, Josh Jacobs, even with less touches, will be able to do more with them. This is an offense that can have a running back be incredibly successful. This is an offense that I expect to kick the door down FBI style on defenses. We saw them run up the score on the Cowboys in the playoffs. I get they didn't make it to the Super Bowl, but they were competitive against the 49ers in the playoffs. This is a team that in year 1 of the Jordan Love era in Green Bay absolutely dropped their nuts. They let their nuts hang on everyone that believed that Jordan Love wasn't going to be that guy. Jordan Love doesn't need to be a top 3, top 5 quarterback for this Packers system to work. Josh Jacobs is going to get his touches on an incredibly exciting offense. I don't understand why more people aren't in on him. You would have to put me in a fucking straitjacket to stop me from drafting Josh Jacobs. I am ecstatic to get him this season. I think he has legitimate running back 1, the running back 1, the #1 guy, the head of the table. the head of the Iron Throne, right? The number one running back potential. I really do. Even if he doesn't see that crazy amount of touches, this is a guy that could score 15 plus touchdowns, and it wouldn't shock me at all. I think this Green Bay Packers offense is going to the moon again. Last year was year one of the system. Year one with Jordan, love me tender, love me sweet. Now in year number two, they bring in a great running back. I understand Josh Jacobs' stats haven't been the best necessarily, but this guy just a couple years ago was one of the best running backs in the National Football League, and I think he still has that in him. Not like he's 34 years old and washed or something. So Jacobs in Green Bay this year, I am ecstatic. I think his upside is insane. At number 3, we got his teammate, Jayden Riley-Reed, wide receiver of the Green Bay Packers, underdog ADP, wide receiver 34, at pick 55.3, aggregate ADP, pick 71. Now I am seeing a lot of people play the fiddle play the fucking drums, bang the drums for Christian Watson, right? And last season, I was a Christian Watson stan. I was writing fucking letters, right? I was the president of the Christian Watson fan club, and he let me down. And it wasn't just a slow death. It was like I fell down 1,000 fucking stairs, made it all the way to the bottom, thinking I was going to leave like, oh, he's coming back, guys, look, he's back. And then I got my face smashed in by a boulder, right? Like Indiana Jones running through the fucking tavern, okay? So that's how it felt. I see people hyping up Christian Watson, and I get it, right? I can even sell myself on Christian Watson based upon the ADP, based upon the touchdown upside, based upon what he showed with Aaron Rodgers. But you want to know who showed up with Jordan, love me tender, love me sweet? It was Jayden Riley-Reed. Now, I'm not going to sit here and act like he is guaranteed to be the wide receiver 1 all year long. I fully will still buy the hype of Christian Watson, but I think Jayden Reed is a lot safer of a guess to be the wide receiver 1, and I want pieces of explosive offenses. I want pieces of offenses that I believe could be one of the best offenses in the NFL. There's a reason why I love Josh Jacobs. It's because he's on the Packers. The reason why I love Jayden Reed is because he's the wide receiver 1 on the Jordan Love Packers. The guy's efficiency also was very solid, right? He's not just someone where his numbers were good because he had so many targets, this, that, and the other thing. No, his numbers were good because he was legitimately efficient. He was 5th in fantasy points per target, 8th in fantasy points per route run, and 22nd in route win rate. This is a guy that is able to get separation. This is a guy that is able to get open. 94 targets, 5.9 per game, 40th at wide receiver, 64 receptions, 4 per game, 793 receiving yards, 49.6 per game, and 10 total touchdowns. When you join an offense that is up and coming like the Packers, the touchdowns are going to come in a hefty way, right? Now, I'm not saying that he's guaranteed to score 10 total touchdowns again, because touchdowns are like a fucking yo-yo. They go up, they go down, they go sideways, they go left and right. And sometimes if you're as bad of a fucking yo-yoist or whatever the hell you call someone that can yo-yo, sometimes the yo-yo comes off the fucking string and goes flying and he scores 1 touchdown or 0 touchdowns, right? That is all possible. But at the end of the day, I am going to want to attach my fantasy teams to good offenses. I believe that the Packers can be even better than what we saw last season. I think Jordan Love can be even more consistent than what we saw last season. He was pretty consistent. So Jayden Reed as the wide receiver 1 in Green Bay, I believe he has the upside to smash. And I'm not going to say, oh, Jayden Reed's going to be the wide receiver 1. Of course not. But as the wide receiver 34 off the board, if he finishes as a high-end wide receiver 2, low-end wide receiver 1, you are going to be ecstatic with that pick. And I think that would categorize him as going nuclear, going balls to the wall in 2024. Next up, we got Deontay Johnson, wide receiver of the Carolina Panthers, underdog ADP, wide receiver 44, at pick 73.4, aggregate ADP, pick 92. Now, if you guys are new to the channel and you have enjoyed this video thus far, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure you leave a like on today's video. And Underdog Fantasy is the sponsor of today's video. They're basically the sponsor of every single video. We've been talking about them thus far through today's video. So if you guys are new to Underdog Fantasy, you can claim your special pick plus up to $250 if you are a first-time depositor using promo code Notorious or by clicking on the link in the video description. If you have been excited about talking about fantasy football drafts, well, guess what? You can do a fantasy football draft right now for money with huge prize pools on Underdog Fantasy. Now, their biggest contest, Best Ball Mania, $25 to enter, over $1 million in first place. Some people don't want to be spending $25 on drafts in the middle of June, the end of June. I fully understand that. They have lower entry contests as well with huge prizes, so make sure you guys check out Underdog Fantasy. I will be doing live stream drafts on there all summer long. Claim your special pick plus up to $250 if you're a first-time depositor using promo code Notorious or by clicking on the link in the video description. So back on into things. Diontae Johnson, right? I understand that Diontae Johnson let down last season, but the reason why he was a letdown was not because Diontae Johnson went out there and was just never open, right? He didn't go out there and just completely drop the ball. He didn't just slow to the speed that old people engage in sexual contact. He didn't just go out there and run like he was in molasses. He didn't forget how to catch the ball, even though we all know that Diontae Johnson has a big case of the dropsies. At the end of the day, the reason why he was unsuccessful is because the quarterback position in Pittsburgh kicked him in the cojones. It kicked him in the nuts. He'd get back up, get kicked in the nuts again, right? That was what happened to Diontae Johnson all season long. We've talked about it with Pickens. Hey, I think Pickens is more exciting with Russell Wilson, right? And I understand that going to the Carolina Panthers, it's not like he went from, Josh Jacobs going from the Raiders. I know they had a solid end to last season, right? But that's a team that's not going to be the best, right? They get to go to Green Bay. Holy shit, the Packers. They could make it far in the playoffs. You could talk yourself reasonably into, hey, maybe the Packers win the Super Bowl, right? You're not going to say, oh, now Diontae Johnson's in Carolina. Now he gets a chance to win a ring, right? No one is going to say that. But what I'm going to tell you is that we saw Adam Thielen, old man, Casper the Ghost, Adam Thielen be successful in Carolina last year. So you don't think Diontae Johnson could get a gazillion targets here? I do. 13 games played. He missed 4 games with a sprained hamstring that occurred in week number 1. We've talked about these hamstring injuries. They are a bitch for skill position players, right? He had a decent season. It wasn't the best season. I wouldn't even say a decent season. He had a bad season. But again, a strained hamstring mixed with the fact that the team sucked absolute donkey cock. It was bad. 87 targets, 6.7 per game, 51 receptions, 3.9 per game, 717 receiving yards, 55.2 per game, 5 total touchdowns, 29th. Though he was 3rd in dominator rating with the 77th highest target accuracy. Now, I know no one is going to come on and tell you, oh, Bryce Young is going to figure it all out. Bryce Young, definitely worth the first pick over CJ Stroud, even though we all probably thought in April last year, 2023, when the NFL draft happened, we all thought Bryce Young should have been the number 1 overall pick, or at least most of us did, right? And now everyone's trying to rewrite history, tell you, oh, I would have picked CJ Stroud. No, you wouldn't have. No, you wouldn't have. Maybe some of you would have, but not most of you. What I will tell you is, again, this kind of off topic, Bryce Young doesn't need to be fucking Superman. He doesn't need to turn into Patrick Mahomes for Diontae Johnson to get the ball force-fed down his throat. This is a guy that has been successful with subpar quarterback play in the past. When Big Ben was feeding him the rock, that wasn't the old Big Ben, right? That wasn't the Big Ben that was, in my opinion, like a top 10 quarterback for a really long time in the NFL. It just wasn't. Again, do I think Bryce Young is going to just be amazing? Probably not. But I think he's competent enough to throw the fucking ball to Diontae Johnson roughly 7 gazillion times. I think Adam Thielen is kind of washed. Xavier, somebody touch him, my Leggett is going to be fine. But I think Diontae Johnson will be the number 1 target. And being the number 1 target on a team that might just force feed you the ball as the wide receiver 44, sign me up. At number 5, we got Alvin Kamara, running back of the New Orleans Saints, underdog ADP, running back 17, pick 74.8, consensus ADP, pick 53. Now, everyone and their mother is given fellatio, right? They are just fondling the balls of Kendre Miller. And I like Kendre Miller, right? I like thinking about how Alvin Kamara is a year older, he's getting older, this, that, and the other thing, right? And I get why some people might be nervous about Alvin Kamara, but I feel like I'm just not going to necessarily bite the bait too early, right? I'm not going to go ahead and just say guaranteed Kamara's washed, this, that, and the other thing, because that is exactly what I did last season. I thought, you know what? Alvin Kamara got suspended. He's going to come back, and then either Jamal Williams or Kendre Miller is going to steal his job. He is going to be finished finito, over, right? And then Alvin Kamara comes out and he is catching balls like his name is fucking Stormy Daniels, okay? This guy is getting an absurd amount of targets. There were multiple games last year where 10 plus targets are coming his way. There were multiple games where Derek Carr, it was like a dog who's just attracted to the smell of someone and they just run directly at it, right? It's like Derek Carr just smelled Alvin Kamara 4 fucking feet away and just dumped the ball off to him a gazillion times. Derek Carr is a check down merchant, and Alvin Kamara is, even at this age, still one of the best pass catching running backs in the NFL. This motherfucker had 2 games last year with 14 targets, and we're drafting him as the running back 17. I get the fun of Kendre Miller, and I'm fine drafting Kendre Miller late as well, but Alvin Kamara feels like a steal. He played in 13 games last year and was the running back 11, running back 3 in points per game. I get that he is not going to be getting a crazy amount of carries, 13.8 per game. Maybe that even goes down, right? But it doesn't matter as long as he gets. In 13 games, he had 87 targets, 6.7 per game, 75 receptions, 5.8 per game, only 6 total touchdowns, 24th. So if he just gets some more touchdown luck and the Saints get slightly better with Derek Carr just laser-eyed onto dumping the ball off to Alvin Kamara, 2nd in target share at the running back position, 4th in yards per route run. A scenario where Kamara finishes top 3. Say he plays all 17 games, right? If you extrapolate all of that out, right? He was 3rd in points per game at the running back position in PPR. He could do that again. He could easily do that again. Again, I'm not saying that's the most likely scenario, but it's entirely fucking possible when, again, Derek Carr is a check down Charlie. He loves to check the ball down. Is Alvin Kamara in his prime in 2024? No, but he doesn't need to be successful in a Saints offense that wants to give him the ball. The only way that Alvin Kamara fails, in my opinion, is if they just pull the rug out from underneath me and just 100% say, you know what, Alvin Kamara, we're giving the ball to Kendre Miller. That is literally the only way. If they start off the season just thinking Kamara's dust, right? That is the only way that is possible. Because even if his snap share is getting sliced up like Fruit Ninja, he's going to be out there enough to get a lot of targets. And as the running back 17 with top 5 upside, running back 1 upside, if he gets enough carries. I mean, like, people are just drastically overthinking things. This is the problem with fantasy football, is so many people try to think too much. Like, you're just so balls deep in your own head. Like, you're doing mental gymnastics. You're doing fucking aerials, or you're on the springboard, or whatever it's called, when you're like walking the plank like you're Jack Sparrow, right? That's what they're doing in their head. Try to talk yourself out of a guy that could easily see 100+ targets in 2024. Don't overthink it. So players that could go absolutely nuclear, go haywire, 25 kill streak, Modern Warfare 2, Christian Kirk, wide receiver of the Jaguars, Josh Jacobs, running back of the Green Bay Packers, double dipping on the Packers, Jaden Reed, wide receiver, Deontay Johnson of the Panthers, and Alvin Kamara, running back of the New Orleans Saints. Let me know down below in the comment section what you guys think. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you hate every single take I had? That's fine. It's okay to disagree. I'm not going to be right about everything. You're not going to be right about everything. Nobody is perfect. You live and you learn it. So I love you guys all so much. Check out one of the videos on your screen if you haven't seen it already. Hit that subscribe button down below if you're new. Hit that like button whether you are new to the channel or not. Love you guys all so much. I'll see you guys tomorrow with another banger of a video. Have a great one, as always. Goodbye.